And returning to the program, we had him on a few months ago, is Stephen Smith. Stephen is a West Virginia candidate for governor on the Democratic ticket. He is running in the Democratic primary. He is one of 66 candidates who are running as part of a new movement entitled West Virginia Can't Wait. He is also one of the people who worked on putting that organization's platform together, but that effort involved quite a few people, as we'll talk about in a moment. So without any further ado, Stephen Smith, welcome back to the program.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks so much for having me on, RJ.
Oh, well, we're glad to have you. And so I mentioned in the introduction that you are running for governor as a Democrat in West Virginia. How's that going?
It's going really well. So the first public polls came out about a week ago, and we are winning the primary race by about 3 percentage points. So it's awfully close, but we started this race with the least amount of money, the least amount of corporate backers and establishment politicians behind us. And here we are winning the Democratic primary for governor in West Virginia on an unapologetically pro-labor platform, not taking any corporate cash, and with the first union staff in West Virginia campaign history.
You know, I didn't even know your staff was unionized. I'm all for that. I love that. It reminds me of another primary candidate that I was working for back in 2016 who did extremely well in West Virginia, and that's Bernie Sanders. So it kind of suggests to me, and you and I have talked about this a little bit before, that people outside the state of West Virginia especially, and particularly pundits and so on, may misread the political nature of West Virginia. It's always talked about as a red state, which, to be fair, with the exception of Senator Joe Manchin, it seems to have been lately. But it is got a long history of Democratic left politics, of an illustrious history in terms of early union action and so on. And of course, the teachers' strikes, which led the way for teachers' strikes around the nation of a few years ago. So is your current poll standing maybe another reflection that there's more progressive energy in West Virginia than people might think?
Yeah, to be honest, the way we see politics in West Virginia is that it isn't left versus right at all. And in some respects, it never has been. That politics in West Virginia instead is the good old boys club at the top and the rest of us at the bottom. And so you see that 100 years ago, the bloodiest labor conflict in American history happened in our hills when Black, white, and immigrant mine workers took on out-of-state coal barons for the right to unionize and for their dignity and better pay. And it's no surprise that 100 years later, it was our teachers and school service personnel who are sparking a nationwide movement, not because we're left-wing or right-wing or Democrat or Republican, but because we are used to getting robbed by out-of-state interests and often by the politicians they own in both parties. And when you give us a chance not to vote for one guy or another guy, but a chance to be a part of our own fight, to be a part of our own freedom, we'll take that every single day.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because West Virginia Can't Wait, an effort that you've been, I believe, deeply involved with from the start, has issued a platform. There's a Workers' Bill of Rights. I guess it has 32 planks in it altogether, but the writing of that platform, as I understand it, was an interesting exercise. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, certainly an interesting exercise. So here's the details. Over the last year, we sort of said at the beginning of this campaign, we're going to wait a whole year to put out a platform because we want it to genuinely not just reflect, but be written by the people of West Virginia. So for the last year, we've held 149 town halls organized by our county and constituency captains across the state. Those same volunteers have held more than 10,000 face-to-face conversations with their fellow voters. They've organized 575 additional visits on top of all of that, where I got to go and meet with small business owners and union halls and fairs and festivals and drug recovery programs. And everywhere we went, we took really good notes. And then a team of our leadership spent multiple days in writing retreats and research and analysis to sort of thread that together into a draft platform. And then we took it back to our leadership, to our county captains and constituency captains, who then held 47 platform parties across the state where they got to dig into the details of the plan and give what ended up being literally more than 1,000 additional pieces of feedback. All of that was then ratified by representatives of our county and constituency teams at essentially a delegates convention. And so what we've put forward is both a deeply and powerfully bold platform, but also one that is truly common sense, truly written by the people of West Virginia. So what we found over and over again was that the people of West Virginia almost always wanted the same thing, and that the debates that we had been sort of taught were these great debates in West Virginia politics were really just being had by a couple of elites. I'll give you an example with education. So if you just pay attention to what happened in Charleston, West Virginia, our capital, the last couple of years, you would think that the main education debate in West Virginia is between Republicans who want charter schools and Democrats who don't. Now, our campaign, we don't want charter schools, but that's not the real debate. The truth is, you get any 20 West Virginians in a room, regardless of what letter they have after their name, and they're going to agree on fundamental changes: much less testing, much more hands-on education, much higher pay for teacher and school service personnel, smaller class sizes, mental health professionals in every school. And those would constitute major education reform. But what we've seen is neither Republicans nor Democrats, when they were in charge, were delivering that kind of sweeping change. And of course they weren't, because at the end of the day, the kind of change we need will only come when thousands of us come together and fight for it courageously. So it's been exciting to see the platform roll out, and these ideas that we're taught are impossible are actually quite popular and speak to the direct interests of people of the state.
And you know that, and again, we're talking to Stephen Smith, the Democratic candidate for governor in West Virginia and a part of West Virginia Can't Wait. As I mentioned the last time you were on the program, I and we are following your campaign in West Virginia Can't Wait overall very closely, in the hopes that it can turn out to be a model for other states, especially states that are normally characterized by the political class as red or heavily Republican or conservative, because I think there's a lot of polling data to kind of back up what you're doing, to basically say that if you look behind party labels, you find that large majorities in both parties support certain policies that get labeled as left and kind of almost marginalized that way by the elites, but then in fact are just common sense and what people want. So you have sort of crowdsourced this platform. Was there anything in it that surprised you, Stephen, that you didn't expect to see, or did it pretty much align with your political instincts?
Well, I think a few things. What a great question. So one thing that I think surprised us were just the areas of emphasis. What are the things that people are truly most worried about? And when we did those 10,000 conversations over the summer, the number one issue, and it was literally occurred 5 times more often than the second most common issue, is we asked people, what would you do as governor? What's the thing about our state government that keeps you up at night? The one issue that was 5 times more popular than the second most popular issue was political corruption. That almost 30% of people, without any prompting, brought up whether you want to call it the influence of lobbyists, or people used words like bought and paid for. We need to ban the lobbyists, et cetera. And so we thought that's true, but to see it be so much, frankly, it was encouraging to see how brilliant and sort of right on the mark West Virginia voters are about the state we live in, because that is the fundamental problem, is that our government is works very well for a handful of people and is rigged against the rest of us. So that was exciting and energizing and a bit of a surprise. I think the other thing that came as a surprise was just the extent to which people are ready to govern, that the specific issues that people had and the specific solutions that they could put forward were just brilliant. And when we started this process, we thought we might have a platform of 5 or 10 issues with a few bullet points under each one, but it quickly became clear that what our state needed is wholesale, fundamental change from the bottom up, and that the people in our movement are perfectly capable of writing not just a sort of big, broad policy platform, but a heavily detailed, 100-plus page, more than 250 bullet points platform that shifts, when we're successful, more than $2 billion per year from out-of-state companies and the folks at the top to back into the pockets of working-class people and local infrastructure. So the project became even more ambitious once we started actually and deeply listening to people than I think what we would have come up with on our own.
Oh, that's fascinating. It's very interesting, and it is exciting. I will say that. So let's think about what happens next, Stephen Smith. Well, I'm sure you have, but let's talk about it. Which is, up to this point, you've recruited 66 candidates, including yourself, to run on this platform. Hundreds of people have been involved as volunteers. Thousands of people have participated, up to 10,000, in discussions of one kind or another about it. So there's a large element of human capital, if you want to use that. Maybe it's the wrong term, but a lot of people have been involved in this thing, however you want to express it. And going forward, what are you both as a candidate and the organization overall, what are your plans to draw on that going forward? Because it seems to me, and I'm sure you would agree, that nothing is more effective in getting people to change their votes, become involved and so on, than talking to their friends, neighbors, family, what have you. So what, if any, plans are out there to take all these people who have participated and convert them into active participants in the campaign?
Yeah, great question. And I appreciate what you said about the effect of one-on-one conversations, because that is literally the root of everything we're doing. That for folks who are looking for a template or a shortcut, none exists, right? That what we do every single day, everyone on our staff, me, our candidates, our county captains, our constituency captains, is that we do one-on-one, face-to-face conversations to recruit new leaders, to listen to people, to build our platform, to build out our volunteer base. And there's no other way to do it if what we want is a government that is directly run by the people. So the next step is to take this political infrastructure we've built, 55 county volunteer teams and 39 constituency teams. So veterans can't wait, seniors can't wait, social workers can't wait, students can't wait. Take each one of those 94 teams, and each one of them has a win number, and they get to spend the next 6 months leading up to the primary hosting town halls, canvassing, phone banking, and trying to hit their win number of identified voters and then deliver them on Election Day, May 12th. And it's an exciting thing to watch, because what's really at stake is this. If we are successful in getting people in West Virginia to reach outside of their class, to reach outside of their race, to reach outside of their education status, then we will win. And if we fail, if this becomes something where everyone is only talking to themselves and their neighbors and the people that agree with them, we will lose. And we think that's exactly how politics should work, that if we are successful at doing the work of listening to our neighbors, then there's nothing more powerful than that. And if we fail to do that, we'll get beaten by the same old good old boys that will spend $1 million plus in a primary trying to tell everyone that I'm their worst nightmare. And we can defeat that, but only if we do the work.
So last question for you, and you kind of led into it right there, and maybe you already answered it, but I'm going to ask it anyway, which is if you can, and best of luck to you, if you continue to succeed, if you continue to lead in the polls, if you get the nomination, from here on in, the better you do, the more the knives will come out. I think
Yeah.
we can expect that, right? I think that there's going to be a Democratic establishment that does not want this model to succeed. Not everybody, I'm not demonizing the party. There's a whole bunch of saying there
Sure.
will be interests or interest groups within the party, well-heeled, well-funded, that don't want this to succeed in West Virginia or anywhere. If you get the nomination, certainly the Republicans will throw everything in the book at you. Are you ready? Is the organization ready? Are the volunteers ready for what might be, well, I'm not saying it will be, but what might be a rocky ride in the coming months?
Yeah, that's what we signed up for. That every movement, every leader we look up to is someone that somebody wanted dead. Right? Let's be real about what's at stake. That when everyday people come together and challenge those in power, there is nothing those in power will stop at doing. So we've been talking about this and preparing ourselves for a year, knowing that if we succeed even a little bit, which we have, that the response will be brutal and unforgiving and mean and low. And that our job is to be strong enough to withstand that, to be strong enough to fight their negative attack ads and rumors with one-on-one, face-to-face relationships. That's why those relational meetings, those one-on-one meetings are so important, is because they're stronger than a well-done TV ad. They can withstand it. Now, does that mean we'll succeed in the end? We don't know. That is up for grabs. It will be a test, a challenge to us and our movement about whether or not we can win. But that is exactly the same test and challenge that millions of people throughout history have attempted, and that's what we want. We think the country badly needs these kinds of fights, a fight between not just the red team and the blue team, but the people who are hurting the most and working the hardest versus the people who are profiting off of that pain and work. And we've got that real kind of fight in West Virginia. We hope other people will take on those fights in an electoral arena as well. And anyone who's watching this who wants to talk strategy or learn what we're doing or hear about the mistakes we're making every day, we welcome the opportunity to talk to folks around the country or here in West Virginia about our strategy and to learn together about what it is. And if you want to be a part of what we're doing, we also fundamentally believe that there's no better use of my time or our staff's time than finding a role for you in this movement. So you can reach out to me. My email is all over the internet, Stephen@wvcan'twait.com. But that's the only way we get there. And you can't control whether or not you win. We can only control whether and how hard we fight. And we're fighting really hard.
So the website is wvcan'twait.com. Stephen Smith, Democratic candidate for governor, on behalf of you and for the entire organization, we wish you the best of luck and thank you for coming on the program.
My pleasure. I'll come back anytime. Thanks
well,
so
we'll
much.
have you anytime.